Yeah.
And moving on to kind of the next step of education, what was your initial thoughts around apprenticeships? Did you have any misconceptions about it, or what were your thoughts initially?
Yeah, so I guess taking it on from when I said, I wanted to be a teacher, I did end up getting into teaching. That was my vocation. I went over to America for a couple of years. I was speaking to you off the podcast. And that was a big step change for me, because we spoke about how much more professional youth sport is over in America and amateur sports, and it changes your mindset in terms of, look at the opportunity here to actually commercialize, coaching and teaching and stuff, like all the one-to-one stuff that's going on at the moment in terms of like these one-to-one coaches, and fair play to them, they're making good money. That's been happening in America for 30 years. Honestly, but anyway, I went over to America and I thought, you know what, I can either go back to England and I can be a teacher in a school, or actually I can actually go back and actually create my own education way of educating people. That's a possibility. And it really ignites the fire in me over there, and I learned so much about myself. But yeah, I come back to England. I still considered myself at that point a football coach. I went over there as a football coach, came back as a football coach. A mentor of mine, Gary Lewis, who was my business partner eventually, was a coach at Liverpool's academy. I was working for Accrington when I first got back, which was, to be honest, like being a Sunday league coach. I had to carry all the balls, bibs and cones in my car. I had to take all the five-a-side goals up to training and set them up beforehand. Even though it was a class as a centre of excellence, it was very much grassroots coaching. I took a team from Accrington to Liverpool's academy and got a result at the academy and got noticed. And my mentor then after that, Gary Lewis, was able to get me a job at Liverpool. So I started coaching at Liverpool, and that's when the whole notion of apprenticeships came in for me. So Gary Lewis at the time, as well as being an academy coach at Liverpool, was owner of a training provider. And again, when I say to you, I come back from America thinking, I've got this idea of how we can develop people better and how it can be more professionalised from a sport and a football perspective. Gary was already trying to do this. He'd set it up a business. Now, a training provider, for anyone who's watching, is effectively an independent college. So they're not set up by the state or the council. They're set up by business people, but then they obtain a contract with the government, or they're able to tender for contracts with the government. So Gary Lewis had set up as a training provider, and he was offering apprenticeship courses. So because of his position at Liverpool, what he was doing was getting a lot of the players who released at 16 and saying, look, you've had 10 years of very good coaching. You're going to carry on playing football maybe at a semi-professional level. Why don't you get your badges, and then you can work for people as a coach? And at that time, it was level 2 and level 3 apprenticeships in coaching. So Gary had about 25 apprentices on his books. So the notion and the principle of apprenticeships hasn't changed. It's about a person who's looking to develop in a role, and a business who's looking to grow and develop and have people who progress within their business. Yeah. So we had, or Gary has at the time, young people who were 16, 17, 18, who were doing their coaching badges, and they were working for the likes of five-a-side football centres, schools, leisure centres as coaches. So in the five-a-side centres, they might be doing kids' parties, they might be doing a league, a kids' league, they might be doing Saturday mornings or whatever. In the schools, they'd be doing after-school clubs, lunchtime clubs, breakfast clubs, PE lessons, etc. But the idea was Gary and myself would go out to the schools or the five-a-side centres. We would assess them, we would give them some feedback. We put on training days every other week where they'd come down for a morning, and we'd teach them some fundamentals in terms of communication, preparation, evaluating your coaching, different practices you can do, different sports, etc. So it was perfect for me because I worked at Liverpool in the evening, where I was coaching young children, obviously the future generation of professional footballers, and then in the day I was mentoring young coaches to become future coaches. So I loved it. It was the best job in the world for me. Looking back, I was not particularly well paid for it, but I didn't care. I was getting up in the morning, I was thinking, all I do is, I'm working in sport and football every day.
But you didn't even feel like you were working?
No, and again, I was meeting people that, I talk about the influence that the teachers had on me, and I thought, look, I'm that person now. I'm going to watch people trying to develop, and I'm talking to them about my experiences. I'm saying, and this is the best part of the job. I'd say to a lot of my apprentices, come and watch me later in the academy, come and watch my sessions, and they're like, wow, they're in awe of you, and it's like I've got such a buzz off it. But yeah, from an apprenticeship point of view, that was my first introduction to apprenticeships, and it gave me a real insight into, for me, what training could be. It's like, you've got your traditional academic route that everyone still follows, and I'm not against that at all. It's horses for courses. You've got your BTEC route, which obviously Access Sport advocates, and then there's work-based training, which for me, depending on what your vocation is or what you're looking to do, can without doubt be the most powerful way of educating yourself, doing it on the job, doing it, in those pressurized environments, being out of your comfort zone, because there's money on the line, there's business on the line, there's clients, there's customers, making mistakes on the job and learning from them and developing, but also becoming qualified. And I think, we're going to get into some of the myths in a moment. I think in the 70s and 80s, apprenticeships was like, okay, you've got no GCSEs, go and get an apprenticeship. Like now, I've done a talk on this morning to our staff, there are 670 different apprenticeships you can do, and they range from neuroscience and engineering to as we say, coaching and business administration. So that there are so many courses out there, and again, they go from level 2 all the way up to level 7. You've got now managing directors like myself that are doing apprenticeships because they've just been elevated through the business and they've actually never had the training to do what they're doing. We've got 2 of my management team that are currently on level 6 and level 7 apprenticeships. So the great thing about apprenticeships for me, and it was the same then as it is now, is it gives you an opportunity to still develop whilst you're earning a living. And for employers who struggle with, HR and staff development, doesn't cost you anything. Your team of staff are being developed to serve the principles and the objectives of your business whilst getting better at, you know what I mean? It's a no-brainer.
Exactly, it is. Do you know what? It's such a, as you say, a no-brainer, something for a company where it's really developing young talent to grow. It's like, for example, like academy football. It's, you're investing in someone who's young and you're bringing them right through to the first team. But it's that process, and it's for free. You don't have to, like Trent for Liverpool, so he's going now, isn't he? But, he's been in development for all these years, and Liverpool have reaped all the rewards. Yeah. From the good coaching.
Without doubt, yeah. And I think from my experience as a business owner, because, again, I'm not sure we're going to cover this, but I actually sold, eventually, and just skip forward a few years, this business that I went to work for with Gary Lewis, I ended up buying him out of the business, brought another business partner in, and we sold that training provider to Access, which is why I'm here now.
Right.
So it was called Coaching Connections, the business that became Access Sport. It was rebranded when it was bought by Access. But I look at how I scaled up my business from 25 apprentices to 360, 370 students when we sold. And it was basically born on bringing our students through, getting them qualified as coaches, sending them off to, there was a couple of them went to university, but putting some of them on apprenticeships. And all of the staff now, say all the staff with the exception of one actually, stuck around. And I've had them staff since they were 16. But I was able to do that through apprenticeships. It's like, these are in a level 2, these are in a level 3. They then maybe went from sport into business, so we've done another apprenticeship. And it was always our vehicle, our way of, okay, well, we can put them on that course. Whereas I think a lot of business owners, particularly small businesses, think, well, I can't do apprenticeships. It's only me. So what? If you're bringing someone on into your business and they've got a particular role, you can put them on an apprenticeship. As simple as that. There's no barriers to that. And if anything, as we touched on before, it's a cost saving. You're not having to go and spend whatever £600-700 putting them on this course. They're doing it, and they're doing it around your job. So the way we approach apprenticeships at Access Industry is it's an immersive process. We get to know the business. So if you're a business owner and you say, look, Gary, I want to take on a business admin, we don't just go and find you a business admin. We come and speak to what you want to achieve, what's your business about, what do you want this young person's aspirations to be, how do you want to develop them within the business, what does your company structure look like? If that's just you and the business admin, great, okay, well, what do you want from that person? Where are you going next year? Where are you going the year after that?
Wow, right.
And that's where I think for us in Access Industry, it's about understanding business as much as it's understanding training. Because we want to try and make sure that we serve the businesses we work with, because selfishly, the better we serve you, the bigger your business grows, the more you're going to give us more customer and go, we've just took on another person. I want my business admin now to become content creator. Can you help? Of course we can. Yeah, we can do that. And I want my, content creator to become a marketing executive. Yeah, no problem. That's the next level. So it's going in regularly and going, okay, where are you now? Has it changed? And business has changed so quickly because you might get a new contract that then changes the services you offer, which might mean that the pathway or the course offer you wanted completely changes, and we can do that as well. So it's exciting, because going back to the very principle of the start of the story and how we minds and cars and whatever, and I had to think about how do I do that, how do I make navigate my way through that. I'm able to do that now, at Access Industry. I'm able to sit down with business owners, help them help them plan for the business. My salespeople and my trainers will then come in and work on the specialisms with them staff. We'll review how it's going. We'll try something different. We'll make mistakes together. We'll grow together, and that for me is the essence of what we want Access Industry to be about. It's
that communication, isn't it, as well? We spoke about communication, being able to not just, I think it's very easy for companies to, as soon as they have a new customer, they go, right, let's get you on board. Whereas you're right, going, sitting down with them, what is it that you need? And that's something that's special, because then people go, right, well, Gary's showing a lot more interest in what I need, so I'm not going to go to any other apprenticeship provider. I'm going to go to Gary and Access Industry.
But you know what, you're spot on, and it's relationships as well. So I've got two really, really good salespeople, and it sounds crude to call them salespeople because we are talking about training, but ultimately they need to gain the trust of the businesses, and ultimately we are selling a service. There's lots of apprenticeship providers out there. The big red brick colleges offer apprenticeships, so we need to try and stand out from the crowd. But going back to the very start of my story, when I used to mine cars, sometimes the people who have mined cars, whose cars I've mined, I've got no money. No worries, I'll still mind your car, it's fine. Next week they'll give me a tenner, because they're like, fair play, the lad minded my car for nothing last week, and I owe him that. Yeah. So the amount of meetings that myself, Katie, Tom, Kaylee, who does our apprenticeship onboarding and recruiting, the amount of meetings we go to where we know full well we're probably not going to get a sale from it, but we might next year, we might next week.
It's
that person might meet someone for a coffee and go, do you know what, you want to learn about apprenticeships, go and speak to Gary, or speak to Tom, or speak to Katie.
Definitely.
So it is an investment, and it's gaining that trust, and we want to be known as industry experts, but we want to be known as business people. We want people to go, well, listen, I want to have a chat about business. Let's go and talk to Gary, or go and talk to Tom. He might know someone for this, he might know someone for that. So it's not just about, as you were getting at there, ramming a product down someone's throat. Yeah. It's about gaining that trust, having that two-way communication, making an effort to understand them, and then you should get that back by the way of future business.
And you talk about the car before. That's kind of you not being too money focused, especially as a young lad who's trying to buy a car. You probably wants a little bit of money, but you didn't, and you allowed that trust. That's where that trust gains.
Definitely.
And that's so important, not to be too money focused, because when you're not money focused, money will actually flow.
You're absolutely right. And going back to when we sold Coaching Connections, myself and my business partner James, who I know you know well, our mantra was we don't ever want to chase the money. If we're providing the service that we want, people will come. And it was like, it's always been a game in education. It continues to be a game of numbers. Like, everyone's chasing the students, and it's one college against the other and whatever. But we always believed that if we invested in our product on the front line, we would beat the competition. And we would always, and you could call it a sales play. We always used to say to parents, to students, go and look at everyone. Go to as many different colleges you want. We're confident that we've got the best offer. However, if someone else has, great, we'd rather you go somewhere else than come here. We only want people who want to be here, and we're only interested in. So it's that there's a psychology element to it, but without doubt, I think if you chase the money, you'll certainly make some money in the short term, but it's not going to be something that's sustainable or something that's going to stand the test of time.
And talking about sustainable and you want that investment, talk to me a little bit about if you were speaking to a business now, and let's say a business is watching this, what would be your advice to them to knock away all the previous misconceptions about apprenticeships and go, right, this is a massive investment for me and my company, what would be your advice to them?
My advice would be to look at your structure, look at your future plans, and what you're effectively doing is, not to repeat the same term, but you're future-proofing your business. You know, if you've assembled a team of people and you want the business to move forward. Now, look, there are some businesses that are happy to remain where they are and to provide that service, and it is what it is. But if you're a business that's trying to progress, trying to grow, you need to be ready for that next step before it happens. So if you've got a person at the moment who's just joined your business, who's doing a particular role, but you know that next year you're going to need them to step up as the business grows, you need them to be working on that next step before it happens.
Yeah,
that's what apprenticeships allows you to do, because you can have someone working in a role. The purpose of it is to try and progress people. And look, the governments are behind it because it drives the economy. If you've got a person in a business who's doing a particular role and they stay in that lane forever and that business stays in their lane, the economy doesn't grow because people aren't, they're not providing more services, exactly. They're not providing extra, so from a business perspective, you should always be looking to develop your staff because they in turn develop your business. And I always say it's the best investment you can ever make in terms of investing in your team, investing in your staff. But going back to the pitch for businesses, it's like, look, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? If you want to stand still, that's fine. And what will happen with businesses that stand still is that you'll turn staff over every year, because staff come into a job with the odd exception and go, what now? Like, I've done that for 12 months now. I want more money. I want progression. And invariably have to leave to get that. If your business is growing, and as I've been fortunate enough to be part of growing businesses and still am, and I've done this talk with my staff this morning, I said, look, if you're sitting there now and you're in this particular role and you want to stay in that role and you want to get better at it, brilliant, we'll support you with that. But equally, if you want to keep progressing, that's what I'm here for. I want to grow this business so that you can grow as well. And I think if you are a business owner, or if you're part of a business that is growing and you don't want to be having to turn over staff every year and start again, because that for me is the biggest expense, both from a resource time point of view and a financial point of view on a business, is recruiting staff or replacing them or disciplining them or whatever. Apprenticeships allow people to go, okay, I'm on a journey here. I've started, but I can see through my own learning and from my own qualification that next year I'll be more qualified, and I'll be able to go like that and go, John, I've now got these qualifications. Can I now step into that role? Yeah, of course you can. I can now pay you more because you're able to provide a better service to our clients. We can bring more money in as a result of it. It's a cycle, but it's a cycle that'll allow your business to grow as well as the people within your business to stay and to realize their own ambitions.
Talk to me as well about any success stories, any standout success stories you feel that you've had through apprenticeships.
I think the best success stories for me, and this isn't, I don't want to turn people off it, the best success stories for me are learners, because they are learners who've started in a particular business, progressed through that business, and have got to a point where they've went out and started on their own. And I don't want people to listen to this and think, well, I don't want someone to take my business off me. It's not the case. I mean, our best success stories now, and I look around at some of our former students and certainly students we've got on now, are the ones where they're having the conversations now going, look, this is what I want to do in 5 years. I've now, because of your influence, because of the influence of this business, I've been open with the director. I'm going to serve this business for 2 or 3 years. I'm going to get to this point. And I'm going to obviously, over that period of time, I'm going to help the business to grow to where they want to be. But then I want to go and step out and I want to do things myself. And for me, I think that's just my entrepreneurial spirit, that they're the ones that are giving me the most pleasure. So one of our first apprentices, I think you may have interviewed him. If you haven't, I know James has. One of our first apprentices at Coaching Connections, Chris Redman, went away and set up his own coaching business, serving primary schools. I think they're one of the biggest coaching providers now in Liverpool. And he started on a level 2 apprenticeship, had no qualifications, and served our business phenomenally well. Helped us with with selling, because he was so good at his job, along with a number of other people. He then went away, set up his own business, and you can see all of the things that, I guess, without being too, by being modest, he picked some stuff up of us. He picked some stuff up off James, but he's also picked some stuff up, from his apprenticeships and the things he's learned. And again, going back to being moulded and being shaped, I think they're the ones that give me the most pride because, you know, I'm not belittling staying with the same company because I've done that for quite a while now, whether it's my own company or now with Access and progressing through the ranks. But it's so much more brave and difficult to step away from that because he left us, admittedly said, look, I'm going to go and set up on my own. We give him back and we actually supported some of his first projects. But it was a massive move for him. And it would have been so easy for him to stay on a good salary, to keep earning and to go into different roles. But he said, you know what, no, I want to be master of my own destiny. I think he looked at me and James and went, I want to do that as well. And he was able to do that. So they're the success stories, I think, that give me the most pride and satisfaction is seeing people, again, stepping out of the comfort zone, you know, going and carving their own way. So yeah, I'd say they're
and I'm sure your teachers feel the same about you from when you were younger. You know, that they know that they had an impact.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
You've achieved.
I hope so, and I guess the sad thing about some of these podcasts and the nature of them on YouTube and that generation of teachers, I probably don't listen to podcasts, but if they are, you know, again, I've mentioned Dougie Milner, Colin Fagan, Scott Davidson, Paula Calder. They were all people in my plays a huge role in my life. And again, yeah, going back to the question and your point, I think that's the greatest legacy you can leave is your impact on other people.
100%. I agree.
Is to go, you know, where you know, you leave because then they pass it on. It's such a, you know, it compounds. So
it's a legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, it without that, but the compounds of that is, again, we talk about society. If you have a positive impact on 10 people who work for you, you know, because they've got families, they've got friends, and they all have that same. It's suddenly thousands of people that you've influenced just by, you know, trying to impress yourself and impress what you believe to be positive values on them. So yeah, without getting too sentimental and cheesy, I think that's something that we're proud. You know, we value at Access. You know, across all of our groups, particularly Access Sport and Access Industry, because I try and, you know, embody those things, but I'd like to think that'll be something that'll always be at the core of our values is, you know, impressing on other people and having that positive impact. And again, those personal standards, maintain those personal standards, which then roll into professional standards and suddenly become part of our DNA.
It's crazy, isn't it? How like we're more likely to keep a promise and standards to someone else than we are to ourselves. You know, yeah. if let's say, for example, today, you know, we're meeting here today to do a podcast at a certain time. We're both on time. We're both here. We're both ready to do it. But then, if you say to yourself, "I want to go to the gym at 5 a.m, or I want to go to the gym at 12," you don't turn up. Do you get what I mean? So
true, yeah. And like, you know,
it's that respect to yourself. You've got more respect for other people than you have for yourself.
Yeah. And I've got a few friends, and I won't mention the names, so I don't want to embarrass them, but I knew that they desperately wanted to start going to the gym. It was a few years ago, and it was after COVID, and everyone was in a bit of a funny place. And in the end, I basically said, right, I'm going to start going to the park, this Walton Park. So it's a bit of a trek for me, you know, because I live in Crosby, but I knew it was a kind of central location for a few of my friends. I said, right, I'm going to be in Walton Park at 6 o'clock. Who's coming? And, you know, I think at first it was a drunk, yeah, I'll come. Then next day, set a WhatsApp group, right, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'm going to be there. And already people think, I'm not sure, yeah. First day, everyone turns up 6 o'clock, and it became very quickly, within a few weeks, it was like, that's it. And what I'd do is I'd design the work. I'm not a personal trainer, but I've been in sport and fitness long enough to be able to design workouts and stuff. And obviously, because I've taught and coached, I can structure it. So I structured it so that if someone didn't turn up, it wrecked the whole workout. So it was like suddenly I think I've got to get up, because if it don't, I'm letting the lads down.
Wow,
I'm letting the other three. And it was about a year later, we kept it up for the best part of a year, and now all of them go to the gym themselves. But it was like that initial push they needed, as you say. They needed they need to be responsible for other people, as they are with the kids and the wife. And it was like, if I don't turn up, that wrecks the workout, and then that ruins their day, and I can't do that.
Wow, that's you know what, that's amazing. You know, because it's a great initial way to get them in that routine. Once they're in the routine, then everyone goes, right, well, I'm going to go my separate way, and I'm going to do my own workouts. Yeah,
it wasn't easy for me, and I had to break my own routine to do it. But again, going back to what gives me satisfaction, it's like seeing people grow. And again, like, I've had several conversations now with them and their partners where they went, oh, thanks so much for that, because they're now a better person. Do you know what I mean?
And they look
now
better.
Understand. Yeah, they look better. That's definitely a thing. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But now, like any habit, it literally you feel like you need it to, and it's a positive habit. Obviously, like not if you've got into that routine and you've been there, whether it's eating well or going to the gym or whatever. Once you break that habit, you start to feel a bit anxious for good reason. No, I need to get back to that routine. So like when you go on holiday for 2 weeks and you can't wait to get back to work. It's not that you want to get back to work. You just want to get back to that habit because you know that actually you feel good about yourself and you're generally quite productive and all that stuff.
Feeling good about yourself is the main thing, isn't it? Because when you feel good, you do good. When you're eating well, when you're working out, when you feel like you look good, it all, especially in business, it all compounds.
Without doubt. And I think that's probably a perfect way to, not to end it, but one of the things I'm really passionate about, and I always have been, and it goes back to when we ran the business with James, and I was talking about it last night, is the things you give back to your employees and your colleagues. Like that example then of me, going to the park with my friends to help them work out and what it gave back for me, but making sure you make time to socialise. It's not all work and the positive or the return you get on that investment is just phenomenal for me. Yeah. So whether it's going right every month or every 6 weeks, we're going to go and have a social, we're going to have a drink, we're going to have, it doesn't have to be, alcohol, we're going to go for something to eat, or we're going to go and do this, we're going to go and do that. We're going to forget about work, we're just going to talk about things. It ends up getting onto work anyway, but then as a business director, that's great. It's like, we've got some creativity going on here as well, but trying to instill that culture where, it's okay every now and again to just sit down and just have a chat, forget about the agenda, forget about the targets, the deadlines, what we've got to do. Let's go to the gym together. Let's do other things together that help to build that camaraderie and that real, authentic, feel good culture. Because we've just come out of what was a ridiculously crazy time of COVID. Like, what was it? It was just nuts. Nobody
feels like it was ages ago. I know it was 5 years ago, but it feels like longer.
But it feels like a movie, doesn't it? It feels like a movie.
Yeah,
it was like, that just didn't happen, did it? Like, if someone told you that was going to happen 20 years ago, you wouldn't believe it. But the impact that's had, we can talk about all there has been positives as well, but the impact that's had on the work culture, in terms of not really feeling part of something anymore because you're just on a screen and you've got this deadline on a spreadsheet or on some kinds of app that you use, and it's like, I've done that, that's my job done. We're trying at the moment, and it's not about stopping people from working from home, because we want that balance. We want people to go, okay, I want to take my daughter to school, brilliant, I want that, because that makes you feel good, that fills that bucket of happiness or whatever.
Definitely.
But we're trying to create a culture now in the office. We want the office to be an enjoyable place to come. We want you to want to come to the office to spend time with people. And I done a post on my LinkedIn, I think on Friday, where I'd had a period of just being in reports, doing loads of...
sorry. Yeah.
And then I came in the office, brought my dog in, I caught up with some colleagues, and it was probably the least productive day if you talk about what did I achieve, how much closer are we to this business objective. But I just felt happy walking out. I'd spent time with some people that I hadn't really caught up with. I got to socialise with, and it was just a nice feeling. I think, for me, that made me feel good as well. And then I come into work revitalised on a Monday, think it was great. I want a bit more of that, but equally I want to tackle some of them other tasks because I've not got on with them. So I think if there's one thing I want to advocate to business owners, to people, whatever it is, just try and get that balance right. With your family. Obviously, we talked about adolescents before, giving them enough time to your kids, your wife, your friends. Yeah. And that will help get the best out of you in the workplace, and you then become a person and a business, I think, that more people want to work with, because that's really what everyone wants to achieve, isn't it? That real, true work-life balance. And
we want that feeling of we're doing something we love. There's that times, I know you've mentioned it before, there's that times where I'm doing work, or I think to myself, am I even, you don't feel like you're working, because you're like, I'm making videos and I'm producing things for my job. And, I have people I've spoken to in my life who were shattered after work, and as much as it can be draining, I'm tired, but I've still, I'll get my laptop back out and I'll carry on with work. Do you get what I mean?
If you can find a way to love your work and love your job, you've smashed it. You think of how many hours a week we say that most people are on a 37.5 hour contract, 40-hour contract. That's the majority of the time you're awake. If that's a miserable experience for you, you're going to have a miserable life. And most people will be fortunate if they get to retire by 60, 65. That's 70% of your life maybe, or certainly 60% of your life that you're going to be working.
Make it count.
Yeah, make it count and try enjoy as much of that. And I'm not saying I'm not preaching this utopian world that everyone's going to love what they're doing, because there is obviously, I think the world would stop if everyone just said, no, I'm only doing what I want to do. But you can certainly, by some of the things I've just said, then by taking the time to socialise with people, and by, adjusting your work schedule so you can drop the kids off and do this and do that, you can still find a way to make that day more rewarding than it is now.
Definitely. And, kind of one last thing to touch on would be apprenticeships in the next 5 to 10 years. What do you see that scope being, and how do you see it progressing?
I think I see it being even more employer-led. We spoke a lot about accountability on here, but, employers owning that training and development plan. So at the moment, as I say, I'm not saying that other training providers do this, but we try very much to ensure that each of our training plans for our apprentices are moulded around the needs of that business and the needs of the learner. So for instance, if you want to be an efficient business administrator, there's going to be like Excel, there's emails, there's stuff that you've got to do, but also there's systems that business use that are really important. There might be a business that's really proud about getting on the phone and being verbal, and there might be businesses who insist on face-to-face meetings. So it's like more of your apprenticeship should be about that than it is about the digital side of business admin.
Yeah.
But I think the future for me, and it's a welcome one, is employers really owning that, and every business having their own apprenticeship program, their own CPD that's dedicated to them, but equally is going to allow the people in their teams to progress both professionally and personally as well.
Well, listen, Gary, it's been absolutely amazing. I think we've covered so much about apprenticeships, about life, about your journey. So it's been amazing having you on. Hopefully, you've enjoyed being interviewed for kind of one of the first times.
I think it's the first
been
time.
Good. So listen, thanks very much, Gary, for being on. This is an amazing episode with Gary, and the next episode hopefully will be out soon. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.